With so much money, we could.
They're lying. Kill them.
You'd think starring as a gun-toting rebel in a World War II epic would open every door in Hollywood. But for Barbara Bach, her striking look, the very thing that landed her a key role in Force 10 from Navarone, was the same thing that closed the door on one of the biggest opportunities of her career. Welcome to the story of a star-studded sequel that arrived 17 years too late, featured some of cinema's biggest icons before they became icons, and nearly got blown off course by behind-the-scenes drama, creative clashes, and yes, one unforgettable casting controversy. Let's rewind to the late 1970s. Hollywood is buzzing in the wake of Star Wars, Jaws, Rocky, and The Spy Who Loved Me. And if you could assemble a cast from those hits and plop them into a classic Men on a Mission war movie, wouldn't that be an instant recipe for success? That's exactly what the producers of Force 10 from Navarone tried to do. Harrison Ford had just rocketed to superstardom as Han Solo. Robert Shaw had chilled audiences as Quentin Jaws. Carl Weathers was still fresh off slugging it out with Stallone and Rocky, and Barbara Bach had seduced Bond as Agent XXX. Oh, and towering behind them, Richard Kiel, Jaws himself, reprising his hulking screen presence, this time as a brutal Chetnik captain. On paper, it looked like blockbuster gold. But there was one little problem. Force 10 was a sequel, and not just any sequel, a very late sequel. 17 years earlier, The Guns of Navarone had blown away audiences with its mix of espionage, explosives, and a top-tier cast led by Gregory Peck and David Niven. Its success sparked an immediate interest in a follow-up. In fact, Alistair MacLean, who wrote the original, was asked to write a sequel novel solely so a movie could be made. He wasn't keen on the idea at first, delivering only a screen treatment, but eventually turned that treatment into a full novel. Force 10 from Navarone, published in 1968. And then, silence. The project stalled. Scripts were written, titles changed. After Navarone, The High Dam, cast announcements made. At one point, they even tried to get Anthony Quinn back on board, but nothing materialized. As the years passed, one thing became painfully clear. The original cast was now too old to believably play elite saboteurs leaping over cliffs and storming Nazi bridges. So the production rebooted with fresh faces. Robert Shaw stepped in as Mallory, Edward Fox took over as Dusty Miller, and Harrison Ford was brought on as American Commando Colonel Barnsby. But there was a bittersweet twist. Shaw died shortly before the film's release, making Force 10 his penultimate film. His fatigue during filming was visible. He reportedly considered quitting movies altogether, and felt increasingly disconnected from the role. "I'm seriously thinking that this might be my last film," he said. "I'm appalled at some of the lines. I can't remember the last film I enjoyed making." And he wasn't alone. Harrison Ford, riding high off Star Wars, took the part mostly to avoid being typecast. "I did the film for the money," he later admitted bluntly. In interviews, he confessed that his character didn't really have a reason to be there, and that he struggled to understand what he was even supposed to be doing. Still, the paycheck was good, and for Ford, that was reason enough. Edward Fox, fresh off The Day of the Jackal, was more optimistic but revealed that the script was a patchwork effort with up to 5 writers making changes during production. Enter George MacDonald Fraser, yes, the author of the Flashman series, who was brought in mid-shoot to help hammer the screenplay into shape. By the time the film was done, it was a miracle it even made it to the screen. Speaking of miracles, let's talk about the bridge. The climax of Force 10 centers around a plan to destroy a Nazi supply bridge by blowing up a dam upstream and letting the resulting floodwaters sweep the structure away. This wasn't just a Hollywood fantasy. The real-life Đurđević-Tara Bridge in Montenegro was in fact destroyed during World War II in a similar operation, led by the very engineer who had built it. That historical footnote gave the film a dash of authenticity amid its otherwise fictional tale. Filming took place over 5 months in late 1977, with much of it shot on location in Yugoslavia, something made possible thanks to the personal approval of President Tito himself. He not only gave the production access to the country's landscapes, equipment, and 2,000 soldiers as extras, but also visited the set. Meanwhile, indoor scenes were shot at Shepperton Studios in London, including a full-scale mock-up of a Lancaster bomber. Malta handled the model work for the dam and bridge sequences. Of course, real-life drama followed the cast, even off-camera. Robert Shaw injured his knee before filming began, so the character of Mallory was suddenly scripted with a limp and a cane. That's not movie magic. That's pragmatic writing. And during one off day, Shaw was nearly robbed while reading alone near his Jeep. In true Mallory fashion, he fought off the attackers and chased them away with a machete. Now, if we shift our focus to Barbara Bach, the sexy badass of the title, things get even more intriguing. Bach played Marica, a fierce Yugoslav partisan who's more than meets the eye. She's seductive, cunning, and deadly with a rifle. But while her role was greatly expanded for the movie, Alistair MacLean wasn't thrilled. In fact, he publicly complained that the character was minor in his novel and shouldn't have had such a prominent part. But producers had other ideas. Bach's icy allure and exotic beauty were a marketing dream. It worked, at least temporarily. Her role in Force 10 got her noticed, and soon the rumors started flying. She was tapped to replace Kate Jackson on Charlie's Angels. Tabloids ran with it. Headlines declared her the next Angel. Even Johnny Carson congratulated her on air, but just as quickly, the opportunity vanished. In a revealing 1979 interview on The Tonight Show, Bach explained what really happened. She was considered for Charlie's Angels. She did a screen test. She even got the dreaded 95% sure you've got it phone call. Then came a follow-up meeting, an odd personality test where she had to make a funny face on camera. The kicker? She was told that she didn't look American enough. Barbara Bach, born and raised in Queens, New York, was rejected for looking too sophisticated, too European, despite being a Bronx-born, softball-playing, multilingual New Yorker. They even asked her manager, "Can she play American?" His answer, "She is American." But the role ultimately went to Shelley Hack, and Bach went on to appear in nearly 30 films, including Caveman, where she met her future husband, Ringo Starr. Back to Force 10. The film opened in December 1978, including a special screening for President Jimmy Carter at Camp David. Critics were divided. Roger Ebert gave it 2.5 stars, noting that it lacked the heart and wit of its predecessor. Others called it old-fashioned, even dated, and commercially, it made just $7 million on a $10 million budget. Not exactly blockbuster numbers. Still, it had its fans. Some appreciated its throwback tone. Others praised the ensemble cast, even if they didn't always look thrilled to be there. Over the years, the film has gained a modest cult following, often airing on lazy weekend afternoons when you want something easy, familiar, and a little bit explosive. Now it's time to hear from you. Do you think Barbara Bach would have made a great Charlie's Angel? And where do you rank Force 10 from Navarone in the pantheon of war movies? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and let's talk underrated sequels, missed casting, and movie legends in the making.